All right, welcome back to our final round of the Garmin Gravel School, where we catch up with some of our favorite pros heading into Unbound this year. I'm Kristen Legan, and here today I'm with I'd say one of the best storytellers in the sport, and of course, a top contender in any race he signs up for, basically. Welcome, Payson McElveen.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to chat a little bit as we head here into Unbound. But yeah, so Payson, you are certainly one of the more well-known names out in gravel racing, and you've been doing this for a good bit now. What can you tell us a little bit about, your first year at Unbound and what that whole experience was like as a newbie at that time?
Yeah. Um, let's see. I think it would have been 2018. Um, and I did it, I don't want to say kicking and screaming, but a little bit grudgingly. I was very much a staunch mountain biker at that point. And it was my sponsor Orange Seal that kind of coaxed me to try gravel racing. Um, and for whatever reason, we decided Unbound would be a good first gravel race. Definitely had never raced that far. And it's funny to think back because 2018 isn't that long ago. And nowadays, it's such a big part of what I do. But I think that's kind of a common story for folks is that they want to try gravel and they really jump into the deep end with Unbound. Um, and like many other first time Unbound racers, I was pretty unprepared. Didn't really have, I didn't know a whole lot about the Flint rocks and how crucial tire setup and all that sort of thing was. So
Mhm.
I ended up having a whole mess of mechanical issues, but learned a lot and was just really impressed with. I should also say that I ended up not finishing. Um,
Okay.
but when I when I was I went to the finish line and watched a lot of other people come across the line and cheered them on, and it was kind of then when it started to click for me. And these days I don't DNF races very often at all. It's a very rare occurrence, and I was pretty bummed, obviously, to DNF that one. But when I was at the finish, I was super, super bummed because I pretty quickly realized how much just finishing was mostly the thing. Um, and so it was a good first lesson. And just kind of being at the event, I think I sort of picked up on what gravel was about pretty quickly, even though I didn't have the best day on the bike. And that sort of shifted my mindset and set the tone. And ever since then, um, yeah, I've been enjoying it for the racing aspect and all of the other, unique things about gravel as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Kind of sucked you in from that first one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how has your approach changed throughout the years? Starting in 2018, you've, done quite a few now at this point. How is your mindset, or just is it more equipment based that's been changing throughout the years to kind of zero in on that race specific setup?
Um, well, so for Unbound specifically, you mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean the race has evolved a lot for
right.
everybody over the years, of course. It's grown in size big time, but it's also for those of us racing at the front, it's changed a lot too. Um, you know that firsthand. And so I think we've all kind of had to adapt fairly quickly, and it feels like almost year to year, there's these conversations in the lead up that I have amongst my fellow racers where we're like, well, could this happen? Could people try this? Will this attitude be different? It's on such a steep growth curve in terms of popularity and competitiveness that I think everyone's sort of scrambling to figure out where to get competitive edges here and there and how to
Mhm.
race it as best as they can. And I think last year there was really this quantum leap just in terms of how the race is ridden. I
Mhm.
remember when someone went under 10 hours for the first time and everyone was like, oh my God, this is insane. And then
Right.
last year, I don't know how many people went under 10 hours, but it was like at least 30 or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, there were a bunch of us under 9.5 even, which is just unreal.
Totally.
And just the way it was raced too, it felt like just a longer road race almost. I mean, I shouldn't say road race, but like tactically in terms
Mhm.
of the the aggressiveness, like breakaways went, and you had to. It just felt way more like a 4 or 5 hour race, but then you just kept going for twice as long. So that was a big adjustment. I've certainly made some changes equipment wise in the last couple of years, like tire inserts and dropping pressure a lot, which seems to have helped. Training has changed a bunch, in these handful of weeks leading up to it. Training, I never used to do like 8 hour training rides, and now it's something that I look forward to doing. Going
Right.
out with your friends and exploring for 8 hours is something I really enjoy. So I think this event has really, it's obviously changed the face of bike racing, especially North American bike racing, but it's also changed, I think, the way athletes go about their jobs, really, which
Mhm.
is awesome. I mean, it's rare that you get an event that just like totally changes everything, but Unbound has definitely done that.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's been a cool to watch that whole transition happen, and always exciting every year going into it, seeing what the possibilities could be this year. Well, besides all the gravel racing and mountain bike racing that you do, you've also dipped your toes into some FKTs and some different bike packing events as well. Can you talk a little bit about just what draws you to those ultra events and those, kind of those route challenges that you've been doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up very focused on cross country mountain biking and never would have guessed that I'd get into ultra or especially not multi-day stuff.
Right.
But during the pandemic, when we all had more time to try new things, I just started going on longer kind of ultra adventure rides, predominantly thanks to my partner Nicole being into that. She's always loved, all day rides or bike packing rides. So we did a little bit of that. And I just got really hooked on the bike being more of a tool for adventure rather than, a competitive thing. And yeah, I guess it just sort of changed my mindset. And I think the first like crazy challenge ride type thing that I tried during the pandemic is Rebecca Rush was hosting a fundraiser when Everesting was a big thing, and there were lots of people chasing the Everesting record, and I didn't really have a climb nearby that made sense to try to do a really really fast Everesting, so decided to go the other way and did a 100% single track Everesting in our high country.
Jeez.
And it was such a cool experience, mentally and emotionally and athletically and all that sort of thing. So ever since then, pretty much once or twice a year, I'll just dream up something kind of silly and wild and adventurous like that. And the last couple of years, it's been these crossings. I went to Iceland in
Right.
fall of 2021 for kind of a bike packing trip with a few other accomplished folks. And towards the end of that trip, had the opportunity to try riding coast to coast across Iceland, which hadn't been done before, and it was hands down the coolest ride I've ever done. I
Wow.
was like, oh man, this is a thing. I want to do this everywhere. And it was actually this globe right here that we came home to. And Nicole and I just started like over the course of many days, like pinpointing all the different places that we wanted to go and try to do a crossing. So that's kind of the latest adventure thing. And it's tricky to balance that with the racing side of things. I don't know that they complement each other super, super well, but they
Right.
they both make me really happy. So I'm gonna keep doing them.
Good. Yeah, exactly. That's important. Most
Yeah.
important part. Well, you recently just released a film about crossing Tasmania.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you share just a little bit about, what you were excited to share with the audience about that experience and what it meant?
Yeah, so that film, it's actually not quite out yet because
Okay,
we keep having opportunities to do cool screenings and little
cool.
events inside. So we're gonna do one more like community film screening at BOA headquarters in Denver on June 6th. So right after Unbound.
Nice.
Um, and but the film will go live right after that. But anyway, yeah, so the filmmaking thing's kind of funny. The it's sort of like two separate things almost. The ride itself, which obviously I get a lot out of, but I also really enjoy the storytelling component. And the storytelling component with these big adventure rides is sort of, you kind of have to like give it room to breathe on its own and develop on its own. I've gone in literally with like hired a screenwriter
Wow.
to put together a storyline that we think might work, and then you go and you try to execute the storyline. It just doesn't work. It's just
Yeah.
not realistic. And so nowadays we just kind of go cover as much as we can, talk to as many people as we can, and see what story develops. And this go around, the story, the the kind of natural storyline that came out was just this push pull that I feel with time, and how these huge rides are an opportunity to really let time melt away. And they're almost like you go into this, it gets pretty cerebral pretty quickly, but anyone that's done an ultra ride will know, like when you go on a really, really long ride, time changes, which is the complete opposite of my racing career, where the whole goal is to be done as fast as possible.
Right.
Um, and the less time you spend riding, the better. That probably means you went fast.
Right.
So it's kind of this idea of taking a break from that. And, at the Sea Otter Classic, for example, we all have these, the pros and many of the folks that work in the industry, of course, have these incredibly rigid schedules, and you feel like you're always running behind, and it's hectic, and it's really fun, but it's also a lot of pressure, and it's just all so centered around time. So this film kind of deals with that idea of, in this day and age when everyone has pretty strict schedules, the value of trying to escape that now and then.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to watching that. That sounds great. Well, speaking of like the long solo missions and getting out there, wanted to talk a little bit about the Garmin inReach. And,
Yeah.
a huge part of these big events is tracking your progress, but also just having a level of, safety and ability to connect while you're out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you use the inReach in your, whether it's a big event or, a crossing or, even just big backcountry days when you're out training?
Yeah. Yeah, so the the inReach is awesome. It's something that we use. I say we because Nicole and I both have them.
Mhm.
Um, if we're on solo adventures, here in our backyard in Colorado, we always just take one. So if we're both on an adventure, we'll kind of, the rule of thumb is we'll tell someone where we're going, and we'll give them the tracking link just as a safety blanket. And then for sure, if we're going solo, even more so. So if Nicole is hanging out at the house and has to get work done that day or whatever, and I'm off, she'll have the tracker and be able to check in on me now and then. And it's fun. It's fun to be able to track your loved one or your friend as they adventure around, but it's also just a really good idea from a safety standpoint. So that's kind of how we use it day to day here where we live. There's not cell service a lot of the places we ride, so it's helpful for that. And we can actually communicate with each other since it has satellite communication, and it's just really easy the way it tethers with your phone, and you can send messages back and forth like, I just saw a huge herd of elk and it was crazy and I wish you were here. Or hey, can you pick me up because I had a crazy mechanical issue, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah.
And then with the crossings, it's super make or break. Like we literally, I could do the ride without one, obviously, but we could not make the film without them.
Right.
Because one thing we've learned pretty quickly in covering these things is that they're really an amazing example of how fast and efficient bikes are. And so they use the tracker to kind of plan where they're going to cut me off, figure out whether they're going to have to skip a spot that they wanted to film and just go ahead, all that sort of thing. And so they're just really, really easy to use. They're tiny, they're light, they have crazy battery life. I didn't have to, the ride I just did in Tasmania that you mentioned
Mhm.
was 32 hours, and I never had to charge it. So yeah, they're just awesome little units.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So racers at Unbound this year, or Unbound XL this year, well, each year uses the InReach out there. Obviously, we don't need it for the 200. But with that in mind, with the XL, is that something that you'd ever, be interested in doing? Again, you're part of the Grand Prix. You're doing the 200 this year. That's a big focus for you. But do you have any interest in doing the longer XL version of
Oh
Unbound at
yeah,
any point? Yeah.
definitely, definitely. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yeah.
Figured.
And I'm really excited to see some of my
Yeah.
peers, the folks that I've raced with, done battle with over the years, kind of graduate up to it this year, like Ted.
Yeah.
Really excited to follow their racing. Yeah, I mean, I just love to ride far. Like it's almost I don't want to say it's a problem because it's it's just awesome and it's fun and I think it's in a lot of ways healthy, especially mentally and emotionally. But it is easy to get sucked into. So, for example, day before yesterday, I did this really awesome adventure ride with a handful of my friends, and it was a little over 8 hours. And afterward, we were just on our text thread, like, what if we just did only this for the next 2 weeks
Right.
before Unbound? Like, would we be okay? Would we be fast? Because you still kind of, have to do your sharp intervals these days to be ready for the 200 also. But there is part of me that really looks forward to that phase of my career where I can let go of some of that structured training and just go on big epic adventure rides and focus on like the Unbound XL and some of these other really big events. I think it's really cool. And it's awesome too that folks will be able to follow along with folks'
Mhm.
progress thanks to that inReach. Super,
Yeah.
super.
Nice. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, taking today and sharing a little bit about, all of the big adventures you've done. And then also just what you're looking forward to heading into Unbound this year. We're really looking forward to cheering you on out there. And I know it's coming up quick, so everybody's looking forward to it. But
Yeah,
thanks for joining us.
of course. Yeah, thank you. Are you doing the 200 this year? Or are you doing the
Um,
350?
I'm in the 350. I'm doing XL this
Oh,
year, so
nice.
yeah, I'm pumped for
That's
it. It should
awesome.
be just talking about like the big dumb bike ride, just go
Oh
and
yeah,
keep riding your bike. So should be good.
exactly. Right on.
Great.
Cool. Well, I can't wait to see how you do.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, great. Well, thanks for everybody for joining us for the Garmin Gravel School. I'm here. I'm Kristen Legan here with Payson McElveen, and we'll see you out in Emporia very soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
See y'all.
Yeah.